On a quiet morning in Southern California, nestled between palm trees and forgotten scripts, a studio many thought was stuck in the past is dreaming a much bigger dream. Not just about money, not just about breaking box office records, but about legacy. A return to that rarefied space that only a handful of studios dare to reach anymore, the Oscars, after years of doubt, disruption, and digital dilution. Warner Brothers, the beating heart of classic Hollywood, has not only survived in 2025, they've conquered. Not just with billion-dollar blockbusters, but with films so powerful, so visceral and human. They're being whispered about in rooms full of gold envelopes, glass trophies, and velvet curtains because Warner Bros. No longer wants to just compete. They're planning to win. It's been a long road. A long, winding road paved with capes, chaos, and corporate takeovers. The early 2020s were tumultuous for Warner Brothers and for the industry at large. Between the streaming wars, global shutdowns, internal shakeups, and the infamous merging of identities and brands, many in Hollywood began quietly asking behind closed doors, is Warner Brothers still that studio? The one that gave us Casablanca, that took a chance on The Matrix, the one that stood behind Nolan, that let Kubrick go mad, that brought magic to screens with Harry Potter, and grit with The Dark Knight. Was that spirit gone? Replaced by strategies and spreadsheets, committee thought, and streaming-first priorities. For a while, maybe, but as the Academy Awards slouched toward relevance in a world obsessed with short-form trends and looping reels, Warner Bros. Did something unexpected in 2025. They didn't pivot to louder, faster, emptier. They pivoted to art. It began not with a bang, but with a hush. A film released in March, not a sequel, not a superhero, just a story. The Longest Winter, a fictional original drama that no data analyst had high hopes for. Written by a first-time over 40 screenwriter. Led by an actor long thought past his peak. Backed by a visionary director known more for stage than screen. Everyone expected a quiet run. Instead, audiences responded in waves. Not on Twitter, but in sold-out indie cinemas. Not in box office millions, though those came later, but in word of mouth. In stunned silences. In choked-up theater lobbies where strangers hugged before walking into the night. One tweet went viral with over 80,000 shares. It simply read, "I've watched superheroes save the world. But this saved me." The noise was quiet at first. Warner Brothers wasn't just back in the game. They were rewriting the rules, and then, just when critics thought they'd peaked, they did it again. Summer came, and with it, a second juggernaut, but not of franchises or flying men. It was The Conductor, a biopic built not for mass appeal, but for emotional destruction. One part classical music, one part obsession. One part spiritual implosion. A woman at its center, fierce, flawed, unforgiving, played with unnerving intensity by an actor so immersed in the role she reportedly forgot her native accent during filming. The result? 18-minute standing ovation at TIFF, New York. Times cover story. 3-word review from Rolling Stone, Oscar. Immediately. Now by fall, the conversation wasn't what might get nominated. It was how many statues can they carry? That's not by accident, because while audiences see performance, the industry sees strategy. Warner Brothers built their Oscar campaign like a whisper turning into a song, limiting press appearances, carefully controlled screenings, festival launches that felt like experiences, not just showings, recruiting legacy filmmakers as producers, leaning into narrative not just of the characters in the films, but the real-life redemption arc of Warner Bros. Themselves. Let's be honest, the Academy loves a comeback story. And WB in 2025 was the comeback story. So how did it all come together? Some point to leadership, a shift toward creatives instead of just corporations. Others cite patience, the kind of slow-burning development most studios don't dare anymore. And some say it was simply time for storytelling to reclaim the throne. Time to make people feel something again. Because whatever numbers get printed on spreadsheets, a film doesn't live through data. It lives through impact. A child in a dark room staring at a screen. A son watching a mother smile through tears. A lonely man hearing his grief spoken aloud in a stranger's monologue. You don't forget. That Dot and Warner Brothers finally remembered how to deliver it right now. Insiders are calling 2025 a watershed moment, the return of the big studio power play. But not through spectacle, through soul, with potential wins in Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and acting nods across 4 major categories. Warner Brothers is practically headlining the coming Oscars, and yet, that isn't what makes this moment rare. Because even if the statues don't come, something even more profound has been achieved. They got the world watching again, talking again, feeling again. Real films, on real screens, with real consequence. That's not just good business, that's good cinema. And now, as the gold rush of award season looms near, there's a quiet sense that Warner Bros. Has already won something more meaningful than the Oscars ever could give. The soul of the industry, the validation of audiences, the trust of artists, and a seat once again at the table where legends are made. Then, fades for your faith, restored. The game changes every few years, but storytelling? That never goes out of style. And in 2025, Warner Brothers told the kind of stories the world was desperate to hear. And maybe that's the real award.